a new day dawning. The time is at hand where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. And let the King of Glory in. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. And let the King of Glory in.
All right, open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates, and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him. He said, "Behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven. And I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, 'Come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place.'" That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day and discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good day, everybody. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. I want to welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Open Up the Door. And hey, do me a favor. I am streaming live over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page. If you'd like to go on over there, it's at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. That's facebook.com/faithfm91.7. Join in the fellowship over there. Let me know where you're watching from, where you're listening from. Be interviewing prophecy teacher John Holler in a few minutes. I'll bring him on. But if you have any questions or anything you'd like to interject via the Facebook stream there, I'll try and keep an eye on the stream. And, you could shoot us some questions as you would like. We are streaming, of course, all around the spherical globe. If you're outside of the Faith FM broadcast area, the best way to listen to Faith FM is to download the free app. We have the app both for the Android platform as well as the Apple platform, of course. Just look it up at your app supplier. Look up Faith FM and Sag Harbor. There are other Faith FMs around the country. And then you'll be able to listen to great Christian programming here 24/7 all around the fruited plain. All right, so John, are you there? I'm going to bring you on in.
I am.
Hey, how are you, bro?
Okay.
So before we jump into...
Getting exhausted trying to keep up with everything that's going on in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That's Bible prophecy related. It's a daunting task right now.
So before we get into all of that, let me give the obligatory intro for those of you who may not be familiar with you, though you've been on this broadcast numerous times before. But it's radio, and we always get new listeners. We always get folks floating in and out. But for those who may be new to the broadcast or unfamiliar with John Haller's ministry, John Haller is an elder and Bible teacher at Fellowship Bible Chapel in Sunbury, Ohio. He's also a sought-after conference speaker, and he appears regularly on many other programs and podcasts as well. John does a weekly End Times prophecy update every Sunday morning that you can catch live or after the fact on YouTube on Sundays. Just look up Fellowship Bible Chapel on the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get John's weekly updates as well as sermons from his church and other resources that he has there. So, John, again, I really want to share something, really both to you, but publicly to my audience as well, as how much I really appreciate the fact that you are a very gracious person. As I've come to know you over the years. I mean, you're gracious with your time. I know how busy you are. I know you go on a lot of far more reaching platforms than I have here. I'm just a little fish in a little pond. But I appreciate the fact you always give me the time when we text back and forth. Every once in a while I'll hear from you, or we'll send articles back and forth. And I just think it's very gracious and accommodating of you. And I want you to know that I really do appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing things with me from time to time. I don't always have as you said, people do it, and I just don't have time to respond.
Oh, I know what that's like.
I was a trial lawyer. I got my license over 45 years ago, and I still have my license. I'm not really doing that, so I guess you would say I'm pretty much retired as a lawyer. And when I run into people, I work at a golf club, a few days a week, because it gets me some employee benefits that I like free golf. And but I talk to people there at the club that are retiring, and I say, call me the day you ask yourself this question. And that question is, how do they ever have time to work? I'm very busy and retired.
Well, the other day you said to me, I know you said you wanted to be done by 1, which we will be, because you had to go to work. And I was kind of scratching my head because I thought you were retired. I thought you just meant you had to go to work working on your updates and your upcoming, seminars and stuff. That's what I thought.
No, I work 2 or 3 days a week at the golf club for 5-6 hours. And, I get like I said, I get free golf. Although right now I haven't played for a few weeks because I haven't had time, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, my life is hardly burdensome or anything like that.
Right. I get it. Sure.
Here I am. It's a first world problem. Gee, I didn't get to play golf this week.
Well, I know the cliche joke is you're always standing on holy ground. I had to say it. Hey, listen.
Well, I get to play. I spoke at a conference in Scotland about 2.5 years ago, and my wife did not want to go. We had just finished a long trip, so I unfortunately had to go by myself, which meant I didn't have to worry about her while I was playing golf. And I will say that the golf in Scotland is very close to a religious experience. If you love golf like I do, it's unmatched anywhere on the planet.
Well, I wouldn't. I would not know that. I have not played a round of golf in my entire life outside of like miniature golf putt as they call it around here.
Well, we like people like you because you don't jam up the course.
So listen, I got somebody on the Facebook stream who's asking me to send you their regards. Fred London. I guess you know Fred.
Yeah, I think I saw you did an interview with him recently.
Last week, yeah, he's got a new book out. So he just said,
yeah, I've met Fred. Fred has some. I've done a couple conferences with him out in Denver.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
And he always has some good insights. And I've also attended conferences that a group he was part of called the Mystery of Israel that were highly informative.
Oh, yeah, with Reggie Kelly.
Reg Kelly, yeah. Bill Haney used to be part of that group as well.
Yes, I know. So anyway, Fred's watching, listening over there on the Facebook stream. Said to say hi, so I did it, Fred. There you go.
Hi, Fred.
So I got one more little quick story, and then we'll get into what we need to get into, because this is kind of funny. It's kind of strange. But I had no idea what your schedule was, and you were away last weekend. But about a month and a half ago, me and my wife have been trying to get away for a while because we just have not been able to get away. So about a month and a half ago, we planned this big getaway. We've been wanting to go see the Ark Encounter there. I think that's in Kentucky there.
Yeah, down a couple hours south of us.
So my wife spent she spent like a day or two, looking at flights, trying to get the best flight plan, package, rent a car, hotel. And what the plan was, John, I'm going to let a cat out of the bag right now, was we were going to fly into Cincinnati, rent, stay in a hotel on the east side of Cincinnati, because that would have placed me about in between where your church is and the Ark Encounter. And I said, you know what I want to do? I want to, let's go visit John on Sunday. We wouldn't fly in on Saturday. Let's go visit John and meet him in person on Sunday. And I got some other friends in Ohio I was going to surprise visit with, and we had all these plans made. And then on Monday and Tuesday we were going to go hang out by the Ark Encounter. So my wife goes through all of these machinations, and as she hits the button to pay it on the credit card, she presses, okay, pay the receipt. The computer, we were doing it through Expedia. This big red flag comes up that said, trip canceled. And we just look at each other like, what was that? After all that, she said, trip canceled. And she was so tired. She said, I ain't doing this again. I'll do it tomorrow. Well, in the interim, I decided it was such a weird thing. It wasn't like a credit card was denied. We got several. It just like glitched out. And I said to her after praying about it, I said, Marsha, you know, maybe that was the Lord, because it was so weird. I said, maybe that was just the Lord saying that this is not the right time to take this trip. And it dawned on me just this past weekend, John, that had we done that, you would not have been at your church.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if I've done any other conferences this year or not. This was the first one down in Rockwall, Texas. So
I said to
you
her,
can get that, by the way. There's a live stream is available for a small cost. They'll get you a couple conferences at hopeforourtimes.com. But it was a great conference. It's always great to see people and talk to them and eat some great Texas barbecue brisket.
Oh, yeah.
Man, they know how to do it.
So anyway, I said to her, the next time we make a plan, I'll call John to find out what his schedule is.
Yeah, probably ought to do that. You know, I'm leaving a week from about 10 days. I'll be heading to Israel for a couple weeks, and then home for about 10 days, and then back to Israel for about 9 days.
Yeah.
So a lot of traveling in between. If I could figure out a way, my wife can't go, but you know, I just can't figure out a way to stay there the whole time. That's kind of cost prohibitive. So,
yeah. So anyway, with all of that friendly chatter to the side now, which is always good to do.
Now we'll get down to business.
Now we'll get down to business. So let me ask you: is it just me? Really, is it just me, or do you have a sense that something really huge is about to happen? There are so many things going on, of course, but really, both domestically and globally, I've got this sense like, when is the shoe going to drop?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because we're in the midst of the sewage spewing forth from the UN on the East River in New York City over the last few days, which has been kind of an incredible, mind-blowing thing, and we could probably fill our time talking about what's happening.
Well, it's on the agenda. I want to know want to know what your assessment is regarding that charade.
Go back the last 2 years. 2 years ago, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman did a pretty widely distributed interview with Bret Baier at Fox News.
Yes, I remember.
Talking about the coming normalization process with Israel that would change the face of the Middle East. Netanyahu stood at the speaker podium a couple days later, showing the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, shipping, rail, truck, that type of thing, ports, to get things from Asia to Europe as an alternative to the Suez Canal. And then it was literally just 7 or 8 days later that October 7th happened, when Hamas and other affiliates of theirs, including supposedly normal people in Gaza, invaded Israel in just a horrific attack. And what we've seen over the last 2 years has been incredible. Last year, a year ago, Netanyahu stood to speak. I think he's speaking today at the UN. But a year ago, he spoke at the UN. And while he was speaking, Israel took out Nasrallah in Lebanon, the head of Hezbollah.
Right, I remember that.
So you're wondering, is something going to happen when Netanyahu is speaking this year?
Is he speaking today or tomorrow?
I'm sure we'll get into some of those details.
Yeah, I thought he was speaking tomorrow, but maybe it is today. I'm losing track of time.
It may be tomorrow. I know he arrived today.
Yes, that I did see.
Although did you see the air route that he took to get here?
I read about it. Yeah, he went.
No, he essentially flew on the Mediterranean. He would normally fly over France, and France said, "You can fly over us," and he said, "No, I don't want to fly over you guys."
Yeah.
So they flew through the Straits of Gibraltar there, south of Spain, so they didn't have to fly over any countries. It was kind of a zigzag route that they took. But that kind of shows you where we are, that the leader of a free country has to do this in today's world. I mean, Mahmoud Abbas would fly direct.
Mm-hmm.
A terrorism supporter, a born stone cold liar
Mm-hmm.
about almost everything. I wouldn't even trust him if he was telling me whether it was day or night outside.
I know. Well, yeah.
But he has no problems. You know, he's lionized by the world, and this is where we are.
The whole thing is such an anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist charade that's going on. I mean, the UN Security Council deliberately scheduled their briefing regarding the war in Gaza on Tuesday, which was the first day of the UN General Assembly, but it was also, as you well know, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Yom Teruah, rather, excuse me. And they did that on purpose. In fact, I got a quote here out of the Washington Free Beacon that said the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, which includes Iran, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, and Algeria, specifically lobbied for the meeting to fall on Rosh Hashanah. This way, many Jewish Israeli officials would be observing the holiday, and they wouldn't be able to attend the session. So you know,
do you think they would schedule this on a Muslim holiday?
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah.
You know,
So yeah, it's certainly.
So,
Well, I said
so
this before. If hypocrisy was water, the world would drown.
you know, it's we know this, but it's still an amazing thing to be witnessing it in real time. The as you said, the blatant hypocrisy, the charade, the travesty of all that it is, and that they are deciding to, and I do think it's got a prophetic type, a prophetic foreshadowing, but that they're doing this, that they're deciding on, you know, infringing on Israel's, Jerusalem's rights, dividing up the nation, and to do it on Yom Teruah. I can't help but think that, again, it's all according to God's plan, God's design. And here's something that I caught that I just couldn't, well, I could believe, but the UN's, where is it? I just had this clip here that the day after, right after the UK recognized the Palestinian state, the British consulate, I don't know if you saw this, the British consulate in Jerusalem updated its address to state whatever the address is of the consulate, but it said East Jerusalem, Palestine.
Yeah, I did see that. I was trying to find the exact thing on their webpage and was not able to, but I don't. The people who posted that I trust, and I know enough people in the UK who've confirmed it. The UK is in a major state of disarray, and I think this is coming to the United States. I know we'll talk about that, but they also put up a map that essentially recognized things over the 67 borders, which have never been agreed to, by the way. The 1967 borders after the Six-Day War. Usually after a conflict, there are agreements about what the border is going to look like. That never really happened. It was just sort of an armistice, we'll stop here or we'll withdraw to here, because Israel had conquered the whole area of Judea and Samaria, which I think is a better word for it than the West Bank. But as people will see on the tour that I'm conducting in about 10 days, we intend, to the extent that we're able to, with security considerations in mind, go up to areas in Judea and Samaria, Shiloh, hopefully Mount Ebal, some other places, also in Judea, Hebron, the Herodian, but the biblical heartland is what the UK and France, and most of the world, look at a map of the world of countries that recognize a Palestinian state now, based on fake borders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there was never a Palestinian state. I don't care what anybody says. There have been agreements to divide up that area. There was a Palestinian state east of the Jordan River and a Jewish state west of the Jordan River. That was what the world agreed to back a little over 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That agreement's never been totally abrogated. There's some lawyers who've done some very good work on that, but the world doesn't care about that. And what they are trying to do is, so right now we have this battle. Of course, we have the war battle, but there is a biblical and spiritual battle about that land. That land was given by God to a certain people group,
Mm-hmm.
whether we like it or not. And you can go there today. I mean, we have people in our church that are Arab that grew up in Israel. They were full citizens and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're Christians, a lot of times they're persecuted and have to leave by Muslims. It's not Israel that's doing it. The Christian population of the Israel part is growing, has grown significantly. And look, there's those people don't necessarily get along with everybody that lives in the country, but they're not booted out. But out of I'll call them the Palestinian areas, they are with some regularity. And there is a massive, so it's a spiritual battle, because what they want to do, this is fighting God. God said in Ezekiel 36, one of my favorite passages, he told the Jewish people, I will bring you back into the land. I sent you out because of your unfaithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you went out into the nations, you played the harlot
Mm-hmm.
spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to reach out to you and bring you back, draw you back into the land, not because you deserve it, but because my holy name is at stake. My promise is more. And so we've been seeing that unfold over the last 150 years, and it continues to unfold. But the world, and we'll do this on our tour. We'll go to a lot of archaeological sites, some that are very recent and just opened. They are restoring the connection of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. And the world is fighting tooth and nail to deny that. So that to me makes it a spiritual battle.
Absolutely. Just there's no denying that. That's that we get that, of course, and we understand that from a biblical worldview. And this is why I say all the time that the geopolitical maneuverings and machinations of men and of nations are nothing but the predetermined prophetic declarations of the living God. He's in control of everything, and he's got this divine blueprint that really began in the garden, from the garden to the end of Revelation. God's got his blueprint, his plan for restoration, for redemption, restoration, regeneration, and it's all part of it. And I know you share this a lot, and I share it a lot as well. But that scripture in Daniel 11 that's become a life scripture for me, that those who know their God shall be strong and do great exploits, and they shall instruct the many, the masculine, and as things unfold, and God gives those of us who are watchmen on the wall, so to speak, insight. That insight will become clearer and clearer. I know you use this illustration, and I think it's a good one. You use it all the time about the eye doctor, and before he zeroes in on all the little lenses in his optometry device there, is it clear yet? Is it clear yet? And he zeroes in, and as we get closer and closer, things get clearer and clearer. But God is raising up a people, I believe, just like you and others, to bring understanding into the spiritual warfare, the spiritual, the eschatos, as it's called, and it is a fight, and the enemy does not want to have it go forward, of course. So in all of that, the other thing that it says in Daniel about those who are wise will teach others, it also says that they will also go through persecution. The enemy is not going to just roll over and let us bring
Right.
insight, and there's going to be great persecution along with it.
Yeah, and we need to sort of steel our minds and hearts that
Mm-hmm.
when this happens, God hasn't abandoned us or anything. He's working out his plan, and he will use us, however, even in our suffering, for his glory.
Of course, well, that's scriptural, 100%.
Yeah.
I think of the Revelation 2:10, where Jesus tells the church, I think that's Smyrna, where he says, the devil's about to throw some of you in prison for 10 days. And that again, there's that number, that number of totality, that number of completion, and he says the devil's about to throw some of you into prison for 10 days, in order that you might be tested. Be faithful unto death, and I'll give you the crown of life. So again, that to me bears witness completely with Daniel 11, because the church of the Masculine, if I could word it that way, it's exactly the same thing. They're going to be tried. They're going to be tested. They're going to be purified, even in the midst of the chaos. And I can go down a bunny trail with that, actually. But yeah, all these things are coming together, and it's amazing to see again how the scriptures are coming alive. I know you know them, but for the sake of contents, I love Zechariah 12, because we're witnessing it. We're witnessing it this week in the UN. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples, and when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. Now, I know this is a future prophecy, but we're seeing the trend line. We're seeing how it's beginning to unfold. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all people, and all who would heave it away shall surely be cut to pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it. And just the other day, I read the stats as of September 23rd. 156 of the 193 UN member states have recognized a Palestinian state, with East Jerusalem being its capital. They are dividing Jerusalem. They are literally, Jerusalem's becoming this heavy stone, and that cannot be denied by anybody with, who would be intellectually honest regarding the scriptures.
It leads to some very interesting things when you're in Israel. I was there in 2017 for the 50th anniversary celebration, Yom Jerusalem Day, when they were celebrating the victory, the 50-year anniversary of the victory of the 1967 war. And they said that there were more people in Jerusalem that day, on any one day, than had ever been in its history.
Yeah. Can you get a little closer to the mic? Your volume dropped really low.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that better?
A little bit.
Okay. I'll crank it up a little bit.
That's better.
So and so I remember going on a walk around outside the wall of the old city, and as we walked from the Dung Gate near the western wall along the southern steps, and then turned to go along the eastern wall where the closed gate is, my phone kept saying, "You're entering a foreign country. Do you want to enter a foreign country?" It was a very bizarre.
Wait, say that again. I think I missed that. What was that?
You
were going from where to where?
Maps. Well, we were walking along the southern side, the southern wall between the Temple Mount and the city of David.
Okay.
And then we turned to go along the eastern wall, where the closed gate is and the Lion's Gate is there along the Temple Mount. So we're to our right would have been the Mount of Olives. To our left was the eastern wall of the Temple Mount. But my Google Maps app kept saying, "You're entering a foreign country. Do you want to enter a foreign country?" Because it's programmed to think that belongs to somebody other than Israel. It's very bizarre. You run into these things all the time over there. So you talk about, dividing the land. Well, they've divided the land.
Indeed. You know what? I got to take a quick radio break. Hold the line.
Sure.
And we'll pick up the conversation on the other side. Just got to do some radio stuff here real quickly. I'll be right back. Keep it right here, folks. We'll be back. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Danny White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in that big, and WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. Just some quick radio memos here. The first hour of this broadcast will re-air today at 3 p.m. Thursday, and it will also re-air on 1 p.m. on Saturday. Just the first hour. If you want to catch the entire 2 hours, it will be uploaded to both my YouTube channel and my Rumble channel. If you're on either of those platforms, just look up Andy White, Open Up the Doors, either on, again, YouTube or Rumble. If you've never subscribed to either one, please do. I'd appreciate that so much. If you're over there on YouTube, hit the little bell up in the right-hand corner, and you will be notified when we do upload and archive these radio broadcasts. So I got Brother John Haller with me today. We're just having this discussion about what's going on in the UN, and we'll probably get into some other things too. But John, real quickly, give them your contact info as well.
Yeah. So our at Fellowship Bible Chapel is where you'll find most of my YouTube stuff. As you mentioned, I do a lot of different interviews with a lot of other podcasters. And then Real FBC on Rumble. We also have an app, Fellowship Bible Chapel app, that you can use. I think, to be honest with you, I have other people that help with it. I think we've started to do audio-only podcasts on various platforms. I think you can get those through the app if you have bandwidth issues. Real FBC on Rumble. And then I also, John Haller 54 on Twitter, on X. And so we do stream some things that I do to YouTube, Rumble, X, Telegram, and other platforms. I do have a technocracy, transhumanism roundtable coming up next Wednesday, October 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with Patrick Wood, Scott Townsend, Rich Gillette, and Pete Garcia, where we just talk about some of these issues, take a few questions. And to be honest with you, there's so much going on in just that space that it's hard to keep that to 2 hours. I mean, it's just incredible because it touches on so many issues.
Right.
And the looming, we talked about the mark of the beast system, what that might be. That's specified in Scripture, but I think we certainly have seen vast movement towards that system everywhere. I mean, my wife was just telling me that yesterday in Vietnam, if you didn't get on board with the digital ID, whatever they wanted, they shut down the bank accounts of half the country.
Really?
Yeah, just yesterday. And so the EU is going into a lot of control over digital platforms. Ursula von der Leyen was talking about that just yesterday with Christian Amanpour while she was in the U.S. at the UN General Assembly meeting. And people are being arrested. I think over 13,000 people have been arrested in the UK this year for what are considered to be improper tweets or posts on X. Hate speech, or you made somebody feel bad. So there's this huge, so we'll talk about this next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a tech intrusion that we see in this massive system that's being built. Patrick Wood made a comment a couple of years ago now that we've talked for years about what this market system might look like, what it might entail. Patrick made the observation was that when the Antichrist and false prophet decide to implement that, after the abomination of desolation, they're not going to sit down and say, hey, let's put together a market of the beast system so we can control everybody, and let's crowdfund it and, go to BlackRock and get money raised to do it. They're just going to flip the switch. So you're going to see all of and I talked about this in terms of logistics of things that are going to happen in the end times there's a lot of things in Bible prophecy that have to hit a threshold point. When it hits that threshold, the threshold being that those of us who watch and teach about it will be able to say, this is that which was prophesied.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be sensitive about how that's coming about in our time and what's that going to look like. And so we're seeing all of the foundations of that being built. And the other foundations would be these massive data centers that are being built all over the world. It's shocking. I travel around, I see them everywhere. We have them all over Columbus. And I'm talking $100 billion in construction.
Oh, yeah.
That's been done to build these centers just in part of Columbus.
I just saw
$100 billion of construction.
I just saw a report. I forgot what state it was in. I think it's Texas, that Zuckerberg is building an AI data center, whatever you want to call these things, but it's going to be the size of Manhattan.
Yeah, there's one in the Wall Street Journal about a month ago had an article about one in northern Indiana.
Maybe that's where it was.
Not too far from South Bend, and they have 8 giant buildings. I mean, you need to understand the scope of these buildings, that each of these buildings, and they're just filled with racks of computers, servers, and things to mine our data, and then to process it and analyze and apply algorithms to it. These buildings are all they're in a field. They're usually about 6 stories tall, and they're about as long as the Empire State Building is. So it's like laying the Empire State Building on its side in a field. There in Indiana, they have 8, and they're going to have 30.
Yeah.
Is the goal.
This one's not built yet, but I'm pretty sure it was. If I read this like a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty sure it was Texas, because the enormity of it was just mind-boggling. A computer data center the size of Manhattan, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's which is about 2 miles wide and 12 miles long,
something like that. Yeah, I think it's
amazing, and the capital and the money that's flowing through these companies, and now, of course, these companies like NVIDIA and Apple and Amazon, I think Microsoft and NVIDIA are both worth and Apple are all worth over $4 trillion. It's amazing. It's really shocking.
So much going on all at the same time, and that's why I said at the top of the broadcast, is it just me, or do you feel like there's a sense that something huge is going to happen on so many different levels, in so many different realms? What was I reading just yesterday? Oh, did you? I'm sure you did, but you saw that they discovered these servers that were going to interrupt with what is going on at the UN, at the Department of.
Yeah, and there was also some servers were being used to foment some cyber terror attacks.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And there was actually some I'm sure you saw this, as Trump was going to speak at the UN, he stepped on the escalator to go up to get to the next level, and the escalator stopped.
Yeah. When
he and Melania stepped on the escalator, it stopped. He got to the podium, and the teleprompter would not work.
Somebody's asking a question on the Facebook stream. What are these computer data centers going to be used for?
what they're used for is they're used for various things, but they are essentially there to store data, bits and bytes of data that they collect from us. For example, yesterday my wife and I were putting some shelves in my office, and we have a little section, and they were too wide. So we both went to our computers. We started looking at shelves that were 46 inches wide instead of 48, so they would fit in this space in my office. My Facebook feed is full of garage shelves, storage shelves, industrial shelves, of all kinds, shapes, and sizes, all through my Facebook feed. Because and sometimes we'll talk about it. I asked the lady at the golf course. I'm the starter, so I tell people when it's okay to go out and play golf. So she had a battery-powered push cart, that would follow her around. And I asked her what the name of it was. For weeks, I had hundreds of ads in my Facebook feed for that model of golf cart. I never Googled it. I never looked at it. I talked to somebody about it. I mean, it's happened. So all of that information is collected from us. Your phone is always on, and it's collecting information that's stored in these data centers, and then
it's all
various algorithms and artificial intelligence.
Exactly, that's where I was just about to go.
Is analyzed.
It's all the infrastructure for increasing the AI capacity.
I remember back when I was the network, the tech committee at my law firm. We had 100 people in the office, about 45 lawyers and support staff that made up the 100, and we had the entire network, including everybody had a PC. This was 1993. Everybody had a PC, and if you added up all of the storage space on all those computers, including our server, you had less than a gigabyte of storage. Now I do a PowerPoint presentation to go with my talks on Sunday or, preaching or whatever, and it's always over a gigabyte, easily. So that shows what happened in 30 years, but all that information has to be stored someplace. So they build these centers, and they have they're doing large language models to learn and to become wiser. And I think we're really on the cusp of some incredible things happening in the area of artificial intelligence. I don't know how good artificial intelligence will be. The people that are running these things say that we're going to reach artificial general intelligence. So that will be, I think the thing is, the goal is to make a computer system that you will have access to from your phone or computer that's smarter than the smartest human being on the planet. But then the goal is to make that system smarter than all human beings on the planet combined, like the sum of all human knowledge. And then you add into that what they're doing with this in the defense industry and that type of thing. And I think there are people that are hopeful that this gets rolled back. Maybe I'm just giving up, but I don't see how that happens. Because if we stop things here in the United States, Europe won't stop.
Of course not.
China won't stop.
China's
Russia
not
won't stop. They're all going
there's
to
an AI.
How do you defend your country?
As you well know, there's an AI race going on right now, and it was years ago that Xi Jinping had said, "He who wins the AI war will control the world." I mean, that's a famous quote. I tell people
he did say it. Putin said the same thing.
Yeah, well, they're in cahoots together anyway. Maybe it was Putin that said it. It might have been at some joint meeting they were holding anyway. But
Putin does these news conferences. He's on stage for like 4 hours.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think he even goes to the bathroom. I mean, it's just incredible. And people sit around and listen to him because it's probably a good way to keep your life going in Russia. But they just had a massive conference, large conference in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
called Moscow 2050
Mm-hmm.
about the future. I can't remember. It was some kind of future world or future tech with Moscow at the center, because this is what Putin views Russia as, the center of the third Rome. They refer to it, the center of Christianity and the outpost for all morality in the world. It's a complete put-up job. We know what he's really like, but and that had a lot of attenders at it. It had, of course, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, George Galloway, a leftist, anti-Israel guy from the UK, Jeffrey Sachs, who is a brilliantly anti-Israel, anti-U.S. leftist Marxist professor, one of Tucker Carlson's favorites to interview and let him spew his lies.
Yeah, what has happened
there.
to Tucker?
Alex Jones was there, so it was pretty shocking. You can find it if you just look, future world 2050 Moscow or something like that. You can shoot to that page and the talks.
Yeah, somebody just commented on the Facebook stream. Maybe that's where it was. It's not Texas, but somebody from Louisiana just posted, said they're putting a meta center about 30 minutes from me. I know where she's in Louisiana. I have been told it is as big as Manhattan. So maybe that's the one I was thinking of. Maybe it's not Texas. Maybe it's this one.
It's all over. And the problem is the infrastructure issue.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly.
They do take up a lot of electricity. And if you've noticed, probably, especially here in the Midwest, your electric bills have gone up dramatically. And that's because the tech centers, everybody wants the tech centers. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with it. Intel was building the first phase of $100 billion chip manufacturing thing about 12 miles from where I live. And they must have 75 or 80 giant construction cranes out there, even today. It's like a forest of giant construction cranes.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that takes power. All of that takes water. And I think a lot of this has moved forward without people asking the hard questions. How do you sustain that? And the tech guys, they're going forward because they're making tons of money with it. They don't really care about the infrastructure thing. Some people are trying to. We just don't have the power plants. I mean,
right.
We cut back on coal.
Right. There's going to be a boom. There's going to be a big.
And we haven't
boom.
built nuclear power plants forever.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
And that seems to be the solution. So what Microsoft did, they're building big data centers too. You don't hear that much about it. What they did is they took all of the nuclear regulatory regulations, statutes, interpretations about what has to be done to build a plant. And they're running it through AI and hoping that it spits out on the other end. We can take this 6 or 7 year process or 15-year process and cut it down to 7 or 8 months. And so that's a practical application of AI.
Mm-hmm.
So it's shocking, but it's stressing the grid here in Central Ohio, I think. I can only say that we've had some issues with power this year. There's only one explanation. And, part of it is maintenance and infrastructure. And the only thing I know is the service seems to be getting worse and the rates go up.
Yep. Just listening.
And not much is going to happen
Yeah.
without electricity.
Yeah. Well, no, there's
So
going to
I
be.
think the hope is that these chips that they use in these AI centers will become more efficient. But the problem is they're becoming so complex. So what NVIDIA started a few years back, by 2030, it may be 1,000,000 times more powerful in terms of what it's able to do than it was just a few years ago. And then they're figuring out how to loop all these things together to work. And now they're talking about quantum computing maybe coming online pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when that happens, everything changes. So if you think you've seen tech intrusion so far, quantum will
It's
put it
mind-boggling.
off.
It's mind-boggling.
There's an AI guy, one of the founders, guy's been involved in developing this name, Eliezer Yudkowsky. Great name. Not kind of a biblical name, Eliezer Yudkowsky. And he just has a book coming out. When this started coming to the fore a couple of years ago, he said, we have to stop it because this is an existential threat to humanity.
Yeah, I remember that.
Everyone, and he was sort of viewed as the Chicken Little of the AI space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all going to die. But there's a lot of people that think this way, and everybody said, oh, we need to do things, we need to regulate. Okay, so it's been 2 years, and what's been done other than a big push everywhere to expand it without regulation? And so we're at this place. So Eliezer has a new book that just came out, and I'm not sure what the title of it is, but he sort of reiterates what he was saying 2 years ago, that this is the end of humanity. And that's kind of interesting because it has the Tower of Babel thing. You know, in Genesis it says, you know, there will be nothing left for them that they won't be able to do, and God intervened.
Yeah.
So they weren't finished building what they wanted to build. That's kind of interesting, and I think that applies to this time. And at some point, God intervenes, but then the question is, you know, how far down the road do we get?
How quickly? I have a friend who actually is a software writer, software program. He wrote program and software for a big global company. He's retired now, but he tells me that a lot of the stuff that's going on with the media is hype. He's not convinced that the stuff is that the AI is as advanced. I mean, he obviously agrees that it is advanced and it's helpful and it's going good, but he thinks that a lot of it is hype to sell a product, and a lot of it is just being, well, I guess that's the best word, hyped up. He's not super convinced that you know, it's going to become Skynet, you know, next week or something. I'm always
well. That's where I would disagree with him, because there's a lot of fluff, and it's going to do this, it's going to replace all workers and everything. I'll say two things. One, it already is replacing workers. I have a friend who has a law firm. He had 4 lawyers in his law firm working for him. He got rid of them because he's using AI to do stuff to replace them. This is happening throughout the legal and other industries. Yeah. And so in that sense, it's not hype. It's actually real and happening. I'm watching it unfold. Yeah. But then again, maybe the hype is to mask the tech intrusion.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of different things going on. We're almost out. We're down to the last few seconds for this first hour. So I'm going to ask you to hold the line. We're going to wrap up this first hour. I'll bring it back on after the news. But I know you wanted to talk about Turkey. So after the news, when we come back, I want to hit on Turkey and a little bit of Iran. But I know you were doing some sessions on Turkey while you're away, and I know that's some stuff that I want to get into. So hold on. We're out of time for this first hour, and we'll be back. And welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of Open Up the Doors, the fusion of heart, mind, and soul here on Faith FM. Broadcasting live from the east end of Long Island here in beautiful Sag Harbor, although it's not too beautiful today. It's kind of a rainy, dismal day today out on the east end of Long Island. But hey, if you're hanging out from the first hour, welcome back. If you're just joining me for the second hour, I've been having a conversation and an interview with Bible prophecy teacher John Haller. John does a weekly end times prophecy update every Sunday morning that you can catch live on YouTube at the Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube channel live. And of course, you can always, if you don't catch him live because maybe you're still at church or something, you could always go on over to the Fellowship Bible Chapel channel and catch it when you get home from church, which is my general habit. I usually come home from church pretty tired, want to take a nap, but I stay up to watch John as I eat my lunch. That's kind of a general habit when he's on, which is all the time. Except last week when he wasn't on.
Yeah, except last week when you wanted to come.
Hey, John, thanks for hanging out. I didn't mean to cut you short on that first hour. I looked at the clock and went, "Oh, Mo, we're almost out of time here."
I know, and so now we've talked beforehand what we're going to talk about, and we wondered how we would get it all in, and so we haven't really talked about hardly any of that so far.
So I'm going to rewind the tape a little bit because I do want to, for those who missed the first hour, we were talking. We kind of went off the bunny trail a little bit, but we started out talking about the UN General Assembly meeting that's going on right now this past week, and the charade and the travesty that it really is. And it's really, when I've been like monitoring and reading the reports of some of these speeches, like from Erdogan and others, and these world leaders, and it's almost not like it's not so much a recognition of Palestine, which it is, but it's almost more of them delegitimizing Israel. That's what it really, more than just recognizing Palestine. It's really just a complete gang up.
It's a complete inversion of reality.
Oh, absolutely.
That we're seeing happen. And so in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago, there was a rather large, and I think pretty important article about what's happening in the world. And the Wall Street Journal article was, I think the title was, Israel is winning the war but losing the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the inset on the second page of the article, this was Saturday, September 13th, how Israel went from David to Goliath. And so, again, you have this inversion of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this country of 9 million people that is completely plastered all over everything and talked about all the time, and seems to be the sum of all problems, the source of all problems in the world. They control everything. And so you see someone who was respected in conservative circles like Tucker, I call him Tucker Carlson,
mm-hmm.
for obvious reasons.
You got me doing that now, too.
ranting on and on about
mm-hmm.
Israel. And then, so he'll go to an interview. I didn't talk about Israel that much. Well, somebody did a mashup of every time he talked about Israel on his podcast in like about a 4 or 5 week period. 800 times it was mentioned in his program, which started, about a year and a half ago, his new program. In over half of the programs, he had mentioned Israel in a negative light. So don't tell me that he doesn't have an agenda. If you cannot see that, I would urge you to pay attention and reset your discernment meter.
Yeah.
So yesterday he came out and he makes these, I'm just asking questions and that type of thing. It's horrible analysis. It's what we would never be allowed to do in the law. I mean, just ask questions, like I refer to her as Propagandist Owens.
The November, that one.
She's gone completely off the rails from what she was. I mean, you can find videos of her full support of Israel a few years ago. And so now it becomes, with some of them, somebody was telling me, or I heard yesterday that, for example, Megyn Kelly, when she does something that's negative towards Israel, her engagement goes up by 30%. So there's a monetary thing there. So it becomes very hard to figure out exactly what people are, but it's a very big problem. Tucker just released his big video on 9/11 yesterday, and it blames Israel. Israel was at the core of this. Israel caused it so we would go to war with Iraq. David Wormser, David Friedman, very intelligent, very involved people, especially David Wormser at the time, immediately posted, I was there, this is a complete lie. Ariel Sharon and the Israeli leadership was telling us, don't go to Iraq. Iran is a bigger problem. Don't go to Iraq. Don't go to Iraq. In fact, they were saying it so much that eventually Israel said, If we keep saying it, we're going to interfere with our relationship with the United States. So everything that Tucker said yesterday was a bald-faced lie. And so what you've seen is this woke right coming out with this anti-Israel, Israel's to blame for everything garbage. This is the biggest genocide in human history, which is not true. It's not even marginally true. And you see protests all over the place against Israel in favor of Hamas, not just in favor of Palestine, advocating for the complete eradication of Israel as a country from the planet. First they say they're fake Jews, and then they say they should go back where they came from. But in some cases, like Arab countries, they can't go back where they came from because in 1948, over 1 million Jews were booted out of Arab countries.
That's where the real apartheid is going on.
Right. So the population, for example, in Iran of Jews went from 150,000 down to a few thousand. In other countries, it went from thousands to zero, total zero. They became Jew-free, just like Gaza was Jew-free. So, again, we have this complete inversion of reality, and the Bible tells us that this is coming. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that we haven't seen anything yet, but it's shocking to me to watch. But Papa Candace and Tucker Carlson are constantly doing, and they're now even suggesting that Charlie Kirk was murdered by the Mossad.
I know.
It was a Mossad operation. And I saw another, I hesitate to even say his name. He claims to be a Christian. He's a total fake con man from Minnesota. And you need to just stop watching him, stop sharing his videos. He was saying yesterday.
Who is it?
Stu Peters.
Oh, yeah. Stu Peters. He's a rabid anti-Semite.
He was saying that
for
Erica
years.
Kirk, who gave a great talk at her husband's memorial service, we can critique it and all that other stuff. She's a Christian. She converted from Catholicism.
Right.
There's plenty of evidence out there that she did. He was saying she is a Mossad agent engaged in child trafficking.
People are nuts. They're just.
And by the way,
they got brain rot.
I see Christians.
Oh, I know.
People who claim to be Christians repeating these lies.
I know.
So if you're repeating these lies and you don't know them to be true, you're engaged in slander, libel, and gossip. That is a sin, and you need to repent of it and stop doing it. Get off social media if you can't stop doing it.
I've been batting these things down between texting with friends and between private texting and Facebook and social media and different things, getting into these things with people who are Christians, like you said. The anti-Semites, the dyed-in-the-wool, off the charts anti-Semites, I've gotten to a point where I don't even really give them the time of day because you're not going to change their minds no matter how much evidence you give them. But I've got friends calling me up who, they're being persuaded because they listen to people. Because in the past, we liked Tucker in the past. In the past, we liked Candace Owens. But what happened to them? I had a friend of mine just last week send me a bunch of texts asking these questions. And when I started coming against Tucker, he pulled, I don't say that in a bad way, because he said, well, Tucker says he's just asking the questions. I said, yeah, that's what he hires me on. But I have a few questions for Tucker. What about your connections with the Qatari government? Because Tucker was saying, well, I'm just asking the questions. This person obviously had a connection to Mossad. It's not that obvious. It's actually been debunked. But I had a few questions for you, Tucker. What about your connection to the Qatari government? And how are they the major donors that have funded your new network? The Qataris gave the Tucker Carlson network after he left Fox, and he was starting up his new network. It's funded in a big way from Qatar. Now, I know you know this, but a lot of the people out there don't know this. So Tucker's saying, I'm asking the questions. Well, I'm asking the questions. You turned against Israel more blatantly, and you've actually turned against Trump the minute you started getting money from Qatar. And they've got a media campaign going out. They've been trying to, the Qataris have been donating, or however they work these things, giving money to conservative outlets, including Fox News, and all of these right so-called conservative influences, because they want their image to be moderated. So, and basically Tucker and Candace, to point blank, basically sold out for money, plain and simple.
Well, but we also have to be honest that I've said with Trump, you need to be he's a transactional guy,
yes.
Always making a deal.
Yes.
So I'm transactional with him.
Yeah, I get it.
There are things he does that I like, and I like his overturning of a lot of the Alphabet Mafia and what they were doing to mutilate children under the guise of changing gender identity. I love that, okay? But I do not understand the relationship with Qatar. I cannot explain it rationally. I know there are business deals behind this. And so what you're seeing is, I think he came out yesterday and said, I will be very upset if Israel annexes the West Bank.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now listen, I'm very upset with this. I've got a friend, Bill Koenig, who wrote about this. This is very bad. God will deal with it in his way. I think it's very risky to do this. And everybody thinks they're going to get, the Abraham Accords and normalization and peace agreements. And they put up the billboards. There's an organization in Israel. I've interviewed some of the people behind it. I love these people, okay? They're committed to this two-state solution. They think this is the solution. They have an organization called Abraham Shield, abrahamshield.org. Or are you excited, and what are you looking for? He says, yeah, I'm kind of excited, but I'm really watching Turkey. When I see Turkey start to flip and go really radical Islamist, then I'm going to get excited. So that was probably 16 or so years ago, geographic locations, and he's reciting the Quran during that. So in December, the Assad regime, which Erdogan hated, fell. And what can only be described as a blitzkrieg, about 8 days. It started in the north, and Damascus was protected by 40,000 Syrian troops, and it fell. Putin said this in his news conference at the end of the year, because he was amazed at it. Those 40,000 soldiers Damascus was taken over by 850 guys that were really committed. There is no doubt in my mind, even Trump has said this, that Erdogan was behind all of that.
He's meeting with them today.
The guy Al-Shara, whatever.
No, he's meeting with Erdogan today.
Okay, well, he's going to the White House tomorrow.
Oh,
before he goes back, I believe. And so, and Trump had a big meeting with all the Muslim leaders.
Yeah.
In New York, and some of them are coming to the White House. I know Bibi's going to go to the White House before he goes back, I think.
But I know he's meeting with Erdogan today.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mean Al-Shara or Trump?
Trump.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't mean to confuse you. I'm sorry. I meant Trump.
There's a very interesting picture at the UN on Monday. I think it was maybe it was Tuesday. Al-Shara, the Emir head of Qatar, and Emmanuel Macron of France.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they're all glad-handing and everything. And so this guy, this Al-Shara guy, has gone from a terrorist to the leader of Syria, and everybody's falling all over themselves around him, including people in our government. I do not understand this. It's like there's a veil over everybody's eyes. So Al-Shara took this over. He's a puppet of Erdogan. And Erdogan, and you can look back at different things that Erdogan was doing. Trump knows this. Everybody who's followed it knows this. Syria, Russia came in to help Syria. They bombed the Sunnis out of Syria. So you got 3 million of them in Turkey. You got a couple million in Jordan, and you had millions go into Europe. Now Al-Shara comes in, and today they're talking about, the Syrian refugees are going to be able to come home. Folks, they're not coming home. They're staying in the countries they went to take them over. This was all by design. And I don't know why we're falling for it. So shortly after Syria fell, Erdogan was doing a rally in a city in Turkey. Begins with an M. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And it was a crowd of young people. And they started shouting, which this is kind of interesting when we layer this on top of Ezekiel 38 and 39, which I don't think is happening next week, by the way. I just think the groundwork is being laid for it.
Yes.
But it says the chief prince of Meshach, Tubal, and Rosh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so there's an argument in our community. Is it Russia? Is it Turkey? Is it Russia and Turkey?
Yeah, actually, Russia's.
I know it's Turkey.
Yeah.
We can argue about Russia. Okay,
I
don't think Russia's doing that well in Ukraine, by and large. But that's probably we don't have time to talk about that. But the crowd started chanting, "Chief, take us to Jerusalem. Chief, take us to Jerusalem." So among the Islamic leaders, the Sunni Islamic leaders in the world, or the Islamic leaders in the world, two countries are focused on Jerusalem. That would be Iran and the Ayatollahs that run, the mullahs that run Iran, and Erdogan of Turkey. Erdogan's response to that chant was, "Victory comes to the patient."
Mm-hmm.
A couple days later, one of his main political coalition partners in a rally said, "If Damascus has fallen, the fall of Jerusalem is imminent." I think we need to pay attention to what they say. So a few weeks after that, on January 1st, I've mentioned this many times in my updates, because I think it's incredibly significant, and they give us the great PowerPoint graphic. I mean, it fills up a nice PowerPoint slide, and it was a rally that Erdogan's son held in Istanbul. It was called A Sun Rises, meaning a sun. The image was half a sun, half Turkish flag, half Palestinian Authority flag, but on a strewn across the top of the slide, by the way, the title, A Sun Rises, kind of has a double meaning, and I think that was intentional. But there are three buildings. The first one is Hagia Sophia. It is the largest church built in the history of Christianity. Some Christian prophecy teachers have even referred to it as the temple, but I don't think it's the temple. But it's an incredibly significant building in the history. It's an Orthodox church. It had been a museum for a long time. 5 years ago, Erdogan went in and turned it into a mosque. So what he said in the poster, yesterday, Hagia Sophia. 5 years ago, we took over Hagia Sophia, not just the building. We showed we were more powerful than the Christians who built the largest building here in Istanbul. First, Christianity. Then the center was today Damascus, because Damascus had just fallen. And they used a minaret from the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus to symbolize we've taken over that Persian-based aspect of Islam. We're now conquering it. And then the last part was a picture of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem that said, "Tomorrow, Al-Aqsa." In other words, Jerusalem and the Jews. And I can tell you from friends, I was just texting with one today who works in the old city of Jerusalem, that at the center where he's at, Turkish tourists come by all the time. And over half of them will say as they're leaving, "We're coming back to take this over." So I'm just saying, so when Erdogan says this, we ought to believe him. So when he says, "We're not returning anything to Jerusalem and we're going to come and take it over," we ought to believe him. And I think that people underestimate what Erdogan wants.
Oh, I've been saying that
even
for years.
If it's not him, it'll be somebody to follow him.
Well, I think he's grooming his son personally.
Well, yeah, he's also got a pretty radical Islamic, I don't know if he's deputy prime minister or foreign minister, Fadan, I think is his name. He's also a candidate. But look, when they tell you this, believe them. Because they're in, and so, when we look at end times thing, you kind of have to add 7 years on from this point, at least that much. So Erdogan's 71. Who knows how long he'll be around? Like I said, I'm the same age. Who knows how long I'll be around? But the point is that this is an incredibly significant thing that's happening in Turkey. So the advice I got, and I think the advice I would give to you is watch Turkey very closely in the days, weeks. Erdogan does not want to restore the Ottoman Empire. He wants to establish a global Islamic caliphate.
Oh, yeah, he wants to establish a greater caliphate than the Ottoman Empire.
Right. So everybody complains about Netanyahu and the Greater Israel Project. Nobody mentions Erdogan and the Greater Caliphate Project. Nobody complains about 800,000, over 1 million dead in Sudan, 1 million dead in Syria. You know, hundreds of thousands dead in Central Africa. Sudan.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody protests that. But Israel, let's say they've killed 50,000, 60,000 people in this war. That's the focus of the world. That's completely out
and half of them,
filter.
And most likely more than half of them are Hamas, because those numbers, as you well know, the Hamas Ministry of Health does not separate civilians from combatants. So that number, that 60,000, 65,000 gets thrown around. That's number one. The number is suspect. Number two, maybe 2/3 of it, maybe 75, maybe 80% of it are Hamas fighters.
Yeah, and if you listen to the media, you would assume that all of those dead are journalists.
Well, you know, journalists. Yeah, well.
So they've killed
I better be careful.
Billions and 400 billion journalists.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. I mean, there's actual real genocide going on around the world, as you said. There's Nigeria, there's Congo, all these other countries, and they're never mentioned. It's like crickets.
I saw a video of a Chinese at a defense meeting conference in China, and a Chinese general was getting in the face of an Israeli, I think a general, saying, "You guys are committing genocide." And the answer would have been, "What about the Uyghurs, China? Can we talk about the Uyghurs right now while we have the media's attention?" But that never happens. So the Uyghurs are Muslims that China has persecuted, killed, and slaughtered for years.
I saw pictures just yesterday. I'll put the caveat out there. I don't know if they were verified. I don't know if they're true, but I saw someone posting. I think the report is true. I'm just not sure the video was an accurate depiction. But that right now, as we speak, the jihadists in Syria are burning down Christian towns and villages, and the video was showing, these wildfires that were sweeping across the countryside. Now, the video with the report made it seem like that those were the Christian houses and villages, but somebody else was saying, no, that's a wildfire in a forest area, which I don't know the landscape, so I don't know. That's why I'm putting that caveat out there. But
yeah, so let me make one quick caveat, because I know you may have to take a break. We are in the middle of a massive Russian, Iranian, Chinese, Islamic propaganda campaign.
Oh, absolutely.
And all of these guys who are talking about Israel, like Tucker, like propagandists, all these people, they came out, I think the FBI came out yesterday and said that Chinese and Russian bots were spreading the rumor that Mossad killed Charlie Kirk.
Oh, yeah, I saw that report, yes.
And all you Christians who just retweet it or repost it or share it, you're complicit in that, and you need to think it through and stop. You're being propagandized.
Well, this has been going on since the Russia invaded Ukraine. The Russian
Correct.
The Russian troll farm. Anybody that does any kind of research, I don't really like using that word so much because it's almost become a misused kind of word. But the point being that all that Russian propaganda that was going out at the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and all of the Christians that were making Putin sound like he was the good guy and he was taking down globalism. And I'm like flipping out going, no. Now, I'm not saying Zelensky's any good, but the reasoning that they were buying into was complete propaganda. It goes back to Alexander Dugin. We've talked about him in the past. And the whole Russian vision of the rebirth of a Soviet Eurasia. It had nothing to do with chemical biolabs in Ukraine. That was a smokescreen.
Well, the interesting thing, I've asked this question to people who were advancing that. So they talked about the biolabs, and so that flipped a bunch of people's triggers. Oh, Ukraine was involved in these biolabs. Okay. Large swaths, 18% of Ukraine is controlled by Russia. It's clear in an agricultural country they would have biolabs in those areas, right? So Russia was advancing this 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Where's
the proof? They've not advanced one thing. So it's either Ukraine covered it up or Russia is not revealing it because there's nothing there, and it would prove that they're lying.
But John, here's the other thing.
Got to stop sharing this stuff.
Most of those biolabs were Soviet era biolabs. They weren't a secret, and Russia has known for decades where they were. Again, they just capitalized and exploited Western sensibilities for their propaganda. I mean, they're saying, oh, we're going to take out the biolabs as they're sending missiles into tenement buildings.
Correct.
And the gullible West was buying into it. I hate to say it, I say it all the time. Gullible Christians were buying into it. That was 3 years ago. My head was spinning. But you're right. You reminded me. I do got to take a break. I'm past break time, so let me take another quick radio break, and then we'll get back. It'll be real short. Hold the line, and we'll be right back, folks. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Danny White here on Faith FM, Integrity in Broadcasting, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in that beat, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. And we've been having a great conversation and interview with prophecy teacher John Haller. And we've just been globe-trotting all around the globe, really, with John, right? I mean, so much.
Well, not that much, but we had our 50th anniversary this spring, so Pam wanted to take a trip to see friends and family, so we, left on Palm Sunday. We did 28 days, 20 states, and 8,300 miles. And we killed one vulture in Texas, flew into our windshield.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that on Facebook.
But we survived and everything. So we've done a few of these trips now. They're probably the longest periods of time we spent together in our marriage. Just because I traveled a lot when I was working. So It's been fun, to be able to do that. It's been a blessing to be able to do that.
Yeah. I want to touch back on something you said a few moments ago about sometimes, Trump being transactional, and sometimes you got to wonder what's going on. And I do think he does play things in interesting ways at times. And I've learned with him personally just to wait it out and see a little bit, because I think he sends up trial balloons. I think he does all kinds of different maneuverings. And sometimes I've just found personally, I got to be careful and not take a knee-jerk reaction to some things and just see how it plays out. But having said that, I do agree with you. Like, what's his thinking with Qatar? And like I mentioned a moment ago, he's meeting with Erdogan today, and Erdogan's going with a shopping list of stuff. Apparently, he wants to try and reinvigorate the sale of F-35s to Turkey, which by U.S. law, I think it was 6 years ago, the Congress passed a law that forbade Turkey buying the F-35s from us because they had purchased the Russian S-400 anti-aircraft system, defense system from Russia, which perturbed the American administration and NATO, rightfully so. But now, from what I was reading yesterday, Erdogan is going to try and revive that by saying, talk about the snake that he is. Well, Russia apparently wants those S-400s back because of the war with Ukraine, and they're running out of military equipment. They're running out of missiles, ostensibly anyway. This is what they're saying. So they want those S-400s back. So Erdogan is supposedly, this is what was being reported, going to go and tell Trump and the Congress, I guess, because it is law right now, so Trump couldn't do anything unless the law got repealed. But he's going to go back and tell Trump now, well, we're going to give those S-400s back to Russia because they want them back anyway. So can we revitalize the F-35 deal? And Trump, unfortunately, throughout the years I've seen this, and I've really wondered about it. It's like, is he naive? He's not naive. I know he's not naive, but it almost seems like he's naive when it comes to Erdogan. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, and this is going to become even more apparent in the very near term as there's an attempt to revive the Abraham Accords. I'm watching things last week. This Gaza plan is being rolled out. I understand there was a 21-point plan presented to the Islamic leaders that Trump met with the other 2 days ago. Don't know the exact details of that plan. I mean, but we've seen enough PowerPoints and that type of thing running around about the plan, and it's clear that this is viewed as a deal, a real estate deal. And here, all of a sudden, here comes Tony Blair, who's, telling somebody who was around when I had hair. That's how long he's been around. And he's involved in it again, and Jared Kushner, highly involved in this. And I think you need to start watching some of the conferences that they go to and talk about. And Kushner is himself very transactional and talking about how this will be a great. He said at Harvard late last year, I view this as a business opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And that's how they are going to see it. They're not Bible scholars. They're not thinking eschatologically wise. So I get.
No, but they're talking in the terms of eschatology.
Yes, well, they don't know that.
And advancing the ball.
Yeah, for sure. But they don't know that. At least they don't think they know that. I mean, I don't know them, but I don't think they know that. What was I going to say? I was thinking. I'm glad you brought up the Abraham Accords, because I was just thinking yesterday if there's not a potential for that whole thing to fall apart, because apparently with Netanyahu and Israel saying that they're going to, or at least threatening to, if I could use that word, threatening to annex Judea and Samaria. I read that Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and there was, I forgot what the other countries, there was like 2 other countries that signed on. I think Portugal. Who else is on the Abraham Accords? Anyway, they were saying that if
Arabia never has. You have Oman, Bahrain,
right.
Morocco,
They're all saying that if Israel does that, the Abraham Accords are going to be null and void.
Well, the UAE through diplomatic channels last week sort of walked that red line language back a little bit, because it's a very lucrative business opportunity. When I was in Israel just back in December 2022, everybody, that was probably like 2 years into the Abraham Accords, everybody was excited. They were talking about this is going to result in $100 billion of business relationships between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. And now they're talking, no, shortly that number got revised upward to $1 trillion. It's a very big deal. And people in Israel, I have said, you need to be very careful with those things, because those people, when you strip back everything, are ultimately your enemy. And I think you're being persuaded by peace and security and economy and that type of thing. And that has a lot of elements of what we're looking for, as things play out in the end times.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking for something. I think I mentioned
So
this.
I think
Go ahead.
the one thing I think so let me just make a couple quick comments. We talk about AI and that type of thing, and there's this goal among the AI guys. Peter Thiel, one of the big tech bros, just started a 4-week conference about a week ago. So I think he's halfway through it. 4 weekly talks about the Antichrist.
Yes.
In San Francisco.
I haven't watched it.
I mean, and so you have to think like that. Did you ever really think you'd see that? One of the big tech guys, big claim to be libertarian, claims to be Christian, despite living with a male partner, and all this, and they're going to bring all of this about. And now he's running around all over the place talking about the Antichrist and Armageddon and the end times, and even doing it in San Francisco to a sold-out seminar. This is very bizarre. But
have you watched any of that?
No, it's not online, and it's not going to be shared.
Oh, really?
He's done plenty of talks and interviews over the last several months where he is always talking about the Antichrist. So I think if you want to find out what he's going to say, you can get those interviews. One would be, I think he did one with Peter Robinson out at the Hoover Institute. Uncommon Knowledge, I think is the name of that podcast. You can find that. And they also did a very long interview, maybe a couple parts, with Ross Douthat, who's sort of the token Christian at the New York Times. One of the, maybe two that claim to be that. Don't know how strong they are theologically, but Douthat did a very good job sort of trying to pin him down on some things. Peter got very uncomfortable. But I think you also want to look at this in this AI space with regard to there's a quest for immortality that's underway. These tech bros think they can engineer things to live forever, to live for a long time. And even last week on an open mic, or 2 weeks ago, when Putin and Baby Kim from North Korea and Xi were walking at this big Shanghai Cooperative Organization meeting and the big defense show. I mean, this was like big Hollywood type stuff. But they're caught talking about the fact both Xi and Putin planning to live to be 150. So they're both early 70s. So that means they plan on being around until 2100, and they'll do this by harvesting organs.
Right.
They didn't say harvesting organs.
Well, they were dancing around it. It was coming out on a hot mic from what I saw.
Right, and they said organ transplant.
Yeah.
But, this is something I've talked a lot about. I don't think a lot of the other Bible prophecy guys do, but I'm seeing it everywhere in the press now. The global fertility crisis, the collapsing populations all over the world. And these things are irreversible. China is lying about their population statistics. Japan is losing 2 million in population a year. Why are they having an epidemic? No, they're just dying off, and there's no babies to replace them. So if you go to population pyramid and you move out to 2100 for China, there's hardly any young kids. It's all old people. Like, I'm talking like 70 years of age and over will be a huge percentage of the Chinese population. You're not, well, I guess maybe they'll get AI powered walkers to go fight the war or something. I mean, so there's somehow this impacts a Bible prophecy. I'm not entirely sure. I just know that I see it. Russia's declining rapidly. Europe is declining rapidly. But this will not be reversed. And so how does that impact their desire to protect their legacy? And I think it makes them more likely to do things than they were. And I think the other thing we need to talk about is the Islamic invasion that's going on. I mean, I have friends in the UK. It's very, very bad. I was in the UK 7 years ago. I had some friends, and they're not racist. They're realists. They're missionaries in Asian countries and that type of thing. And they drove us into London. And they said, now we're going to play a game. It's called Can You Spot a True Englishman? And I will tell you, just the year before, I had been at Nablus and Samar and other places, Hebron. And I will tell you, I saw more burqas in London near Hyde Park and Speaker's Corner than I saw in the West Bank.
Mm-hmm.
That was 7 years ago. You can only imagine what it's like now.
We don't have to imagine. We don't have to imagine, John. We could just watch the news reports and the newsreels that are coming out.
Yeah, so I was just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area over the weekend, and met with people who are talking about the incredibly apparent invasion of Islamic people into Texas. This is strategically done. I was told, I haven't been able to verify it. Go follow Amy Beck.
Oh yeah, I actually am. I just started following her yesterday. As you know, I think I mentioned it to you. I just got an X account, so I started following her. Yes. Yeah,
at Rear Foundation, RAIR,
yes.
rearfoundation.com, I believe
yes.
it is. Mm-hmm. She does great work. I think she's from New York, by the way, so you probably have an easy end to get an interview with her. I'm trying to get a hold of her. And I'm just telling you, people are telling me they've acquired large swaths of land around Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. They're building mosques and that type of thing. And I'm seeing reports. I just saw a testimony of a security guy who said this mosque looks like a defense fortress that they've built. And it's designed to be able to ward off SWAT teams. Now, I'm just telling you, this is happening everywhere. It's strategic in key cities, and they're going after Texas, to flip Texas. And I'm just telling you, something needs to be done. I'm not sure what the answer is, but we are in the early stages of a war. This is what the guy, his name was Huntington, I think, who wrote about the clash of civilizations. Melanie Phillips wrote a book called Ladunistan. 19 years ago, she was recognizing this. And we just seem to be sleepwalking into this thing happening. And I think it's pretty rough.
Yes, because the West has been asleep for years without understanding what real jihadist Islam really is. So there is an ignorance on that level. And then there's also the fact that they're using our system, our democratic republic system, they're using it against us in a way. And it is very, you could go and listen to these. And that's why I do like Amy Meck. She's always posting these videos, and her and Membry as well. I always forget what Membry stands for. The Mideast, you know what Membry
stands for. Middle East Media Research Institute.
Yeah, thank you. I can never remember
and there's
that.
also Dexter Van Zyl, my friend, who is writes for the Middle East Forum. He's part of the Middle East Forum. MEforum.org, just sent me an article he just published about the mayor of Dearborn, or Dearbornistan as we call it around here, going after an evangelist in Dearborn. It was pretty well publicized what he did 2 weeks ago to this guy, saying, I'll throw a party when you are forced out of the city. And he doubled down on it on September 23rd, just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Saying, he said, you need to get out of the city. We do not want your type here. And that's America and Apple. I don't know if you've ever been to Dearborn, but they have the Henry Ford Museum, who was a raving anti-Semite in his day, and the Greenfield Village, which is like a collection of Americana historical buildings, like Edison's workshop, the Wright brothers' workshop, the courthouse where Abraham Lincoln practiced law, and they're sort of there in this little Americana village. but it's surrounded by Islam now.
Well, yeah, it was Henry Ford that brought in the Arabs from the Mideast when he was starting up his factories, when he was starting up his the assembly lines back in the day. He was bringing all these Arabs in. That's why the whole Detroit, Dearborn area got so Islamized. It's because of Henry Ford.
Yeah. So I mean, it's happening in real time right in front of us. And so the question is, what do we do, and how do we as Christians act? And it's
preach the gospel is what we do.
It's a very difficult situation that we're in.
Yeah, well, like I said, they're using our system against us. We have a pluralistic society. We have freedom of religion. They're using that to bring in their leaven, the leaven of Islam. What can we do, really? That's a tough nut. Other than preach the gospel, absolutely do outreach, absolutely preach the truth, absolutely. I don't know whether you know this or not, but I do a lot of street ministry. I go down to New Orleans year by year for the Mardi Gras outreach, and through the years, it's become more and more of Muslims. Now, I'm not really practicing Muslims because they're down there partying at Mardi Gras, but I've gotten into a lot of debate back and forth. In fact, last year, it's gotten so much so that last year, before I went, I actually bought a whole bunch of pocket New Testaments in Arabic so I could, as I got into conversations, most of the time, they will enter into a dialogue with you most of the time. And I've had some good conversations, and I've had Muslims who really wanted to know God, and they were raised in the system, they were raised in their religion like so many have been, whether you're Catholic or Baptist or Jewish or whatever. And I've been able to hand out New Testaments in Arabic, so it's just part of the warfare that you talked about earlier. It's a spiritual warfare. It's more than political. It's more than geopolitical. It is that, but the powers and principalities are working through the structures, the societal structures. That's how the powers and principalities work.
Yeah, I sort of want to throw up my hands, like I'm not sure where everything is going. I mean, a lot of things are.
I think in the natural, you could certainly feel that way in the natural. I was just saying to my wife, I think it was this morning or last night, I'm seeing all the chatter that's out there about Al Qaeda and ISIS plots and plans in this country, that they're uncovering plots and possible terror attacks. And I'm thinking to myself, now, if we're hearing that in the media, then obviously we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I said to my wife this morning, I said, I can't imagine what it must be for these people who work in our intelligence agencies, in the DHS, the Christie Gnomes and the others who see so much more of the intel than we do, and how they handle it. How do they sleep at night? Like you say, you want to throw your hands up, but they can't, and they gotta fight it, in the real practical sense. But these are the days we're living in. This is the world we're living in. And as somebody I know always seems to say, what did you think that last days would look like?
Yeah, I say that a lot.
I know.
We're all starting to say it now. I don't know. Some of these things always be interesting to go back and research was, who was the first one to come up with that idea, or that bad theology? Where did that start, and how has that developed over time? But I'm trying to just keep up with what's going on right in front of my face.
I know. And we, I hate to say it, but we are out of time. But real quick, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, at Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube, Real FBC on Rumble. We also have an app. Church website is fbchapel.com. And I'm on Twitter or X and Telegram, and it's either John Haller 54 or John Haller 1954 on a lot of the social media platforms. I don't post a lot. Most of my stuff is going to be on YouTube. And don't forget the Prophecy Roundtable on technocracy, transhumanism, technology, Wednesday, October 1st at 7 p.m. on the Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube channel.
Okay, great. John, thank you so much for the interview. God bless you, and I'll be in touch. Thanks for coming on.
God. Thanks so much.
God bless. All right, folks. Keep it right here on Faith FM. Some more all day long. Great Christian programming. I'll be back next week. God bless. I still want to keep talking. I mean, the conversation can just keep going and going and going. There's so much to talk about. But I'm out of time, and I got to go. Bye-bye.